We all know that America today is facing a greater crisis than at any time, perhaps since the Great Depression. And in those conditions, we have to reaffirm what it means to be a Democrat or a progressive in America today. Progressives know that America's diversity of our culture and our ideas is what makes America great. Progressives know that government does work when it is transparent and accountable to the people that it serves. And progressives know that no person is an island. We are all in this together. And we can make a better future, a better country, and a better world by looking out for one another and recognizing our common humanity. That's why when some said that separate is equal, progressives proudly proclaimed that we cannot have two Americas separated by the color of our skin. When some said only men have the sensibility to vote, progressives proudly proclaimed that all people have the right to elect their government. When some said that only a man and a woman could be a family, progressives proudly proclaimed that a family is between two people who love one another. When some said going to space was impossible, progressives proudly proclaimed that we choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard. And after the Great Depression, when some were content to leave the American economy in ruins, progressives proudly demanded a fair economy for every person in America. It is in our very nature as progressives to look toward the future with an eye toward improvement. And that's why every major gain in American history has been thanks to the progressive vision. When our forefathers signed the Declaration of Independence, they did not do so with an eye toward a glorious past for America. They did so with an eye toward a glorious future. And I am proud to continue that tradition today of fighting for a better future for America. To ensure that better future, it's time for us as progressives to once again stand up for freedom. The freedom of every person to work in a fair economy where they can earn enough to sustain their families and communities without domination by conglomerates at home or abroad. The freedom of every person to see a doctor when they're sick and get the best treatment available. The right of every person to an education that endows them with the ability to sustain themselves, participate in government, and seek the fullness of life. The freedom of every person to live in a clean environment. The right of every person to live in a sustainable home, in a sustainable community. And the freedom of every person to an accessible and open internet where they may freely express themselves. We can start here on Staten Island, where 1,800 families have been forced on strike because the global conglomerate of Charter Time Warner Spectrum refuses to sit down in good faith with their hardworking employees and negotiate a new contract. They believe they have the right to unilaterally decide that contract for their employees, one with less benefits and less protections. Meanwhile, their CEO, Tom Rutledge, took home $98 million last year, the highest paid CEO in the telecom industry. I say it's time for a new way of doing business in America. It's time to make sure that workers get a fair share of the profits that they help create, because no business can exist without the hard work of its employees. And every person, whether they work at a for-profit corporation, a non-profit corporation, or they are a public employee, everyone deserves a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. Perhaps the greatest president in modern American history, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, remarked prophetically in his second inaugural address about the mysterious cycle in human events, where to some generations much is given, and of other generations much is expected. This generation has a rendezvous with destiny. Though these words were about the generation that ended the Great Depression, defeated the Nazis, and won World War II, I feel they ring just as resonant for our young generation today. For it will be up to this generation, the millennial generation, my generation. It will be up to this generation to create a prosperous American economy, to solve global climate change, to seek global peace, and make sure every person can live with dignity. Make sure every person can live with dignity. And we need leadership that can carry forward that banner of progress. Not of incremental change, but of the vast and wide-ranging change we need to get America on the right track. And that is why I'm proud to be running, to be the voice we need for a better future for Staten Island, a better future for South Brooklyn, and a better future for America. Thank you very much.
Okay, questions? We have some questions.
Anybody want to ask a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, you can be the first one right here. Right
Anyone
here.
else here?
We know your question.
Yeah, you're second. You're second.
My question,
Yes, ma'am.
who are you? Where do you come from? What is your background? 7 years ago, I get, but who are you?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Paul Sperling. I'm a born and raised Staten Islander. I'm 25 years old. I'm a proud millennial. I'm a small business owner, and I work mostly in property management. And so that's my background, my career background. I'm not running on who I am as a person. I'm running on my ideas, and I'm running on what we need for Staten Island and South Brooklyn.
Same question as I've asked the other candidates. It's a question about how good are you at answering questions and how good is your judgment. So, who did you support in the last presidential primary? And in retrospect, what do you think of your candidate now?
I was extremely proud to support Bernie Sanders during the presidential election of 2016. I'm extremely proud to continue to support Bernie Sanders, and I look forward once in Congress to helping him pass Medicare for all for every American.
Hi, Cindy Worsby here. Yes, I just wanted to know how much money you've raised.
To be honest with you, we are just starting now the fundraising portion of our campaign. The past few months has mostly been about getting the message out. So I can tell you we are under the $5,000 threshold to file with the FEC, but that'll change very soon as we begin the fundraising portion of this campaign.
Okay, balloting has come to a close. Unless you are running over there right now to hand in your ballot, we'll close the balloting. And the committee of 3 that volunteered to count the ballots, would they please come to the ballot box table? Thank
Best
you.
of luck to all the SIDA candidates running tonight.
Okay. Next question.
Okay, again, my name is David Jones, and I've been here before, as you know. The question I have for you is pretty similar to the question I had for your colleague who was running. And it has to do with, well, you know what I asked the last time, so now I can swing it over to, how do you propose, excuse me, over at that table. Thank you. how do you propose to get your message out? I guess that's the, how do you get people to know you in this short period of time that we have before the primary comes up? And how do you build support amongst the various organizations, groups, and moreover the people, and reconcile that with this island voted for Trump. The majority of this island voted for Trump. The North Shore, we're represented tonight by our wonderful City Council person, Debbie Rose.
Thank you.
Who's also a member of our club.
Thank you.
You know, how do you propose to overcome the 2/3 that exist on the rest of the island who are just dead set against anything that even smacks of progressivity? And you know, this is very hard. How do you get your message across so that they understand that what you're asking for are the same things that they're asking for? Thank you.
So, as I understand it, yours is a two-part question. How do we?
Oh, it's a one-part.
How do we not moderate the message as we gain fundraising, and how do we convince Staten Islanders to vote Democrat? So, I'll answer it in one. In that, I know many people look at Staten Island as a Republican borough. I don't view it that way. I view Staten Island as a working class borough. And if we have a message that works for the working class, we will win this election and we'll win every election.
A question, you know, we have a congressman right now who's kind of one of these low-profile apparatchiks who goes along and allows evil to prosper in the most evil administration in my lifetime. And what I want to know is, so he keeps kind of a low profile while he does this, but of all the things, but he must be doing some things and be pushing some particular issues. Is there any individual issue that he's working on that is really, really objectionable to you in particular? Just name the most objectionable thing that he's doing. Thank you.
So, Dan Donovan, our current congressman, voted to spend $10 billion of an eventual $70 billion on putting a wall on the border with Mexico. That is abhorrent, it doesn't work, and it's frankly stupid and disgusting. That is money that would be much better spent here in our own district. We know Staten Island is a transportation desert. They talk about neighborhoods being transportation deserts. We have a whole borough that's a transportation desert. Imagine what $10 billion could do for public transportation on Staten Island rather than on the border wall with Mexico.
Hi, Paul. Same question about foreign policy. So where are you standing on spending money on military and invading other countries?
So Teddy Roosevelt once said, speak softly and carry a big stick. The military is not the first option. Military is one of the last options when all the other options are gone, and we've used them already. So military first is not the way to go. Now, the Congress in the Constitution is the one who has the power to go to war. Now, we passed after 9/11, the Congress passed, a authorization for the use of military force. And that authorized the president to unilaterally go against the perpetrators of 9/11, which they interpreted to mean Al-Qaeda. They're now using this authorization to go against ISIS, to invade countries all over the world. It is unconstitutional the way this law has been interpreted. And we need to reaffirm Congress's duty as the one who decides who goes to war. Not the president. It is the people through their representatives who makes that decision.
Hi, Paul. Same question that I gave to the other candidate. What is your policy and position on the raising prices of rent and house ownership in Staten Island that's driving people to other places outside like New Jersey while minimum wage has stagnated?
I've been very sad to see so many members of my generation, so many lifelong Staten Islanders pushed out of our community because they could no longer afford the rent. In some communities of Staten Island, people saw their rents double in 1 to 2 years. That's not sustainable. People cannot adjust to a doubled rent over just such a short period of time. We need to bring jobs to Staten Island that allow people to sustain their families and their communities. If we look into history, we can see many, many missed opportunities to bring jobs to Staten Island. After 9/11, many of the major banks built what are known as offsites. These are places that employ a few dozen people at a time, but they're equipped for their entire staff in case of an emergency or a disaster. Only one of those sites is on Staten Island. That would have been a few hundred good-paying jobs for Staten Islanders that allow them to sustain themselves right here on Staten Island. Those should not have been passed up. It was only passed up because members of our elected leadership who had the ability to bring those jobs here did not take the opportunity. We could look right here what's going on now with Amazon's second headquarters. Now, we were lucky enough to get a warehouse coming to Staten Island, but we were completely overlooked on bringing the second headquarters here. Hundreds of cities, big and small, are in the running. Manhattan's in the running, Queens is in the running, Brooklyn's in the running. Staten Island was left out because our elected leadership failed to put in a bid. Simple as that. And their excuse was that public transportation isn't good enough. Public transportation isn't good enough because they've also failed to invest.
What's up, Paul? My question is this. We had a president disrespect various communities, people of color, Haitians, Africans, Latino community. Now, let's say if that was you, the comment came out about the, pardon my language, the shithole comment. Now, we have someone that is in office now who's a coward, and he said that he wasn't there in the room, and his mother's caretakers were from Trinidad and Ghana, and so therefore, he doesn't feel that way. So if that same statement happened, what would you have done? What would you have said to your constituents that came to you and said, where do you stand about the shithole comment?
Thank you.
I would say one of the things I said earlier, which is that diversity of our cultures is one of the things that makes America great. America is a place that is built on diversity. It is the foundation, one of the major foundations of our country. When you think of America, one of the things you think of is diversity. So to have an administration that thinks you could make America better by making it whiter goes against our core values as a nation. So that is what I would say to President Trump.
Well, would you denounce the comment?
Of course. It was a disgusting comment. For a president to make a comment like that I could not imagine a more unpresidential.
Okay, I wanted to get more into what the context of that comment was, which was that Trump supposedly had agreed to a bipartisan immigration bill that would do something about DACA, and then because of right-wing pressure, backed off in about the most obnoxious way that he could. Now, the Democrats agreed back, I think in September or November, to short-term extensions of the government funding, that we would use that eventually as leverage to get what we want, because Republicans are too irresponsible to vote to keep the government open. So do you think that if they need our votes to keep the government open, that we should do what Schumer and Pelosi have said they would do with that leverage, which is demand that if they get our votes, they have to support an extension of DACA, they have to support an extension of CCHIP?
So I'm going to make the first thing clear, which is that I support a Clean Dream Act for undocumented Americans. They live as Americans every single day, and it's about time we have the recognition for undocumented Americans, the paperwork that says they're Americans, that they already are. I will also say and I don't believe we should shut down the government. I do not think that that is the right approach to take.
Yeah, but it's not up to us.
Come over here.
It's Republicans. It's not up to us.
You can ask the question right here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Come on. You're all right. Come on over.
No.
Did you hear her question or statement?
So I'm not clear on your point.
Well, we all agreed that it shouldn't close, but it's going to be, that's all they know how to do. And you know what? They're gonna own it, because it's not up to us.
Well, I think Paul's point was that Republicans need Democratic votes in order to keep the government open.
They only need it because they're lunatics. They do have enough votes to keep it open. They just, the fringe of the Republicans do not.
The far right of their own party refuses to vote.
So they want our support, they should give us something in return. That's all.
Okay, if I may, I will, but I want to just maintain the same decorum that we had before. No back and forth, but thanks for the clarification. But if you have a question, anybody, let's do it the right way. Paul, you can respond to that, yes.
So, we all remember a couple of years ago when Republicans shut down the government. And that was a disaster. Government workers didn't get paid. Parks closed, parts of the government shut down, people couldn't get the services that they need. So I don't think that's the right way to go. We need to protect dreamers, but we need to make sure our government stays open for the people who need it to work.
Do we have one more question? It looks like we have two more.
Hi, Paul.
Hi.
Listen, I just want to repeat a question that was asked by Mr. Jones to the other candidate earlier. And I'm a little bit leery about the fact that right now you have only raised about $5,000, correct? That's what you said.
Actually, we're under the $5,000 threshold.
Okay.
And as I said, we are just beginning now that fundraising portion.
I heard you. My question is, assuming there's a group or a person that is loaded with some kind of cash, let's say they gave you $50,000 right now, because they have, I'm just saying, because they have some kind of agenda for you to push, what would be your reaction to that?
I would hope that they don't donate money to this campaign unless they agree with the ideas and the values and the goals of this campaign.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Michael, how you doing?
I'm doing well. First, I applaud you for being up there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was you just a couple of months ago.
As one of your potential future constituents, please share with us what qualifies you to do this work and take this position.
Sure.
Please.
What qualifies me is the fact that I've lived on Staten Island my entire life. I'm well versed on the issues here. I know what's going on, and I think that's reflected. And I'm open to any question that anybody may have on what we could do to make things better and how we got here. And I'm open to proving my qualifications for anyone. Thank you.
And then the last question regarding what I also asked Mike DeSillis, and with the DCCC making a pseudo pronouncement, how do you feel about that, and how do you think that's going to work in this district?
I don't think Staten Island is people in South Brooklyn are going to be told what to do. People in Staten Island, South Brooklyn are going to vote their conscience, they're going to vote their heart, they're going to vote their morals, they're going to vote the best candidate for this job.
Thank you very much, and we'll turn it back to Bobby Goodman.
Thank you.
Thank you for